Spider-Man comics haven't been the same in a good part of 20 years. There have been a few standout runs like Superior Spider-Man, Spider-Verse was decent, but overall, Spider-Man comics have been on the decline, and I'm getting tired of it. I've recently caught up with the brand new Zeb Wells run, and it's goddamn awful. In an objective sense, it's not inherently horrible as a story goes. If this was a Spider-Man adaptation, I'd actually be pretty interested, as it does explore some concepts to change up from the source material. But since it's a continuation of a story that has spanned 60 years, it's god-awful. But I'm not just going to sit here and tell you how bad it is, I'm going to explain why I don't like it. And at the end of the video, I'm also going to tell you how I'd improve upon it going forward. So this is why Spider-Man comics are not the same anymore. So let's start with our main protagonist, Peter Parker. Peter is not how I thought he should be in this series. It's really weird because he feels like he isn't written like how Peter Parker should be when he's pushing 30. Peter Parker in this series is written like a teenager. He's immature, stupid, and gets to live in hell kicked out of him every time when he shouldn't. And I think this leads me on to a wider problem that most of my issues for Spider-Man comics in the present day kind of all fall into. And that's the fact that they refuse to move Peter on in his life. It feels like we've got to a point 30 years ago where they were just finally marrying Peter and MJ for good, and it was going to be great. Obviously, there would be a few bumps along the road, but it genuinely felt like that was the end game, and we'd have books and series past then exploring different aspects of Peter's life, other than just him being a broke teenager. You could still keep him as the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, and he'd still be that lovable character that we all know and adore, but his character and storytelling would evolve past him being just broke and a wannabe teenager all the time. It feels like he's constantly stuck in tandem with being broke, and even when he does get a job and is financially stable, he ends up losing all his money anyway. I think for a younger, youthful, and even an early 20s Peter Parker like Spider-Man PS4, it's okay for him to be broke and have financial troubles. But at some point, the character has to evolve, and it kind of just becomes silly at some point. It's like, well, he's broke again. You would have thought at this point he would have figured out how to sustain a livable income since, you know, he's like one of the smartest people on the planet. I just think by this point, it's a little bit unrealistic for Peter Parker to still have no money. And constantly, the writers just want to keep him broke. They just want to keep him with no money. Like, what are you doing to this man? The poor Peter Parker, man. Come on, guys. And I know money troubles is a big part of what makes the Spider-Man character work, and is definitely a key component of the character's origin and early life, I will say that. But past then, I don't think it should matter as much as it does. I'm gonna say it.
I don't care that you broke your elbow.
I wouldn't mind if Peter had something like Parker Industries in a modern day comic. I know Parker Industries was hated when it was in the Superior run, and then it was kept on for the new Amazing Spider-Man run, but to be quite honest with you, I thought it was quite interesting. Obviously, if they downscale it just a little bit, because obviously then Peter just becomes another Iron Man, I think it could be quite interesting to see how Peter would be a scientist or a teacher. I think there are great stories that can be told with an adult Peter Parker, and the comics are so hell-bent on keeping him in that same place at all times. It's just boring because we've seen it all before. In the last 20 years, there feels like there has been no progression whatsoever, which brings me on to my next point quite nicely. Mary Jane and Peter not being together is stupid. And in this new run, Mary Jane is still one of the supporting cast members, but she has kids with a guy called Paul. What? I know this might sound hypocritical because I said I want the story to move forward, and Mary Jane settling down and having kids is technically moving the character and the story forward, but the fact that she's not with Peter after all of that relationship developing and build up throughout the 70s and 80s is just stupid. Because we all know as Spider-Man fans that eventually Mary Jane and Peter will be back together, so why beat around the bush? But then again, we just know they'll end up splitting up again, and then they'll be back together again, and then they'll split up again, and then they'll get back together again. It's like, Marvel, just make up your damn mind what you want to do with these characters. So even though they have moved Mary Jane forward and a character is now doing other stuff, it doesn't really mean anything because everyone knows she'll just end up back with Peter again. So what's the point? Just get them back together and leave them together. And base the stories around their family life going forward. And also, Mary Jane has powers now. Yeah, you see, I get they're trying to do something different, but not every character in the Marvel Universe needs superpowers. Like, Mary Jane was a great character before she had powers, so just adding them overcomplicates things and really doesn't do anything new for her. Anyway, moving on to the next worst decision the comics at the moment are making. Norman Osborn. Norman Osborn being a good guy. What's this about then? I know he's reformed and he's a good guy now or something, but like, having Norman around completely destroys and minimizes the rivalry him and Spider-Man have had over all of their years. This is the man who killed Gwen Stacy we're talking about, the love of Peter's life. And what annoys me more is that it kind of just undoes Spider-Man Blue and stories alike. All the emotional trauma and great storytelling and character work done in comics like Spider-Man Blue is just kind of undone because Peter for some reason is okay with Norman being good. Like, Peter, what happened to that time on Valentine's Day where you relived the life with Gwen Stacy that you had and you remembered what you lost? Are you just okay with the man that took that away from you? I know I wouldn't be. And once again, just like Mary Jane, Norman is going to become the Green Goblin again at some point. I mean, it's inevitable. He's Spider-Man's arch nemesis. At some point, Norman will become the Green Goblin, and it's waiting to happen. I know they did the Hobgoblin stuff, so, I mean, if that's not a hint that at some point the Green Goblin is going to come back, I don't know what is. I just don't understand why every Spider-Man story needs to rehash the same characters over and over again. Like I said, it ruins and devalues the stories from the comics that came before. Just let Norman rest, man. He's a bad guy, he should be dead or in prison, and that's final. Overall, I just hate the overuse of past characters and trying to rehash every single character over and over again. I'd wish they'd just move on. But now onto the part of the video where I discuss what I do to fix the Spider-Man comics at this point in time. And to be quite fair, it's quite simple. But giving Marvel Comics and knowing how they are with the Spider-Man character and how they don't know anything about how the modern fans want him to be written, I doubt that they'll ever do anything like this. And they'll probably just carry on doing stuff like they are in the present day. But anyway, here are my ideas. So after the whole story with Chasm is over and we revert back to the status quo, we're going to have the next story arc focus on getting Peter Parker back with Mary Jane Watson somehow. I don't care what it takes, just do it. They are meant to be together. Just get them together at any cost and keep them together. Have incriminating evidence come out about Norman's past or something that has just surfaced about him being the Goblin and have him get arrested for it, putting him away for good. And even if you want to, potentially have this be a lead for him to becoming the Green Goblin again. In this instance, we could play off this as being the final showdown between Spidey and Goblin for a very long time. Let's raise the stakes a bit, make it intense. Then have Goblin die or somehow be taken away forever in the final battle, meaning that he's done. There is no more Norman Osborn, he's gone forever. Give Mary Jane a story arc where her powers interfere with either her kids or her relationship with Peter, which means that she ends up getting rid of them. I want to do this because, as I said before, I really don't think it adds anything new to the character, and Mary Jane is a damn good character as it stands. She's definitely one of the most interesting and well-written side characters of any superhero, and I just don't know why she needs powers. She just doesn't. You could use Mephisto or someone to remove them, but I think that's lazy writing, so I don't know. Maybe have the powers be an incentive to break hers and Paul's relationship up, as they could be a danger to the kids. And then Paul gets full custody over the kids and then moves away. This would break MJ as a character, and I think it could provide some powerful character trauma to reflect upon future stories. But at the moment, she's back with Peter, which is the main thing. And now that things are back on track, let's move forward. I would introduce the concept of Peter being able to get a job as a scientist or a teacher or something like that. Let's move him forward. As I said, Peter being broke in his 30s is so unrealistic. Then eventually I'd have MJ and Peter have a kid once they are ready, and that way we could get some pretty cool father-daughter stories between Mayday and Peter Parker. You could also introduce new villains exclusively for Mayday, which would be cool, and you could make more stories like that. Anyway, those are just some ideas of how they could move forward. I don't like keeping Peter the same and rehashing everything else that they've done before, and like I said before many times throughout this video, doing something like this is a great way of moving the character into the next step of his life without him constantly being in the same status quo that he was when he was 15 from 1963. And also I do think this is interesting because it gives us an avenue for new stories with the character, something that we have never seen before. But anyway, those are just my opinions on the Spider-Man comics and how I think they should move forward. Because to be honest with you, I think they're running out of ideas of how to keep Peter in this same position, and it quite clearly shows, because as the new Zeb Wells run demonstrates, they are definitely just rehashing everything that they have done before. But with that being said, that is it for today's video. Leave a like on it if you did enjoy it, and also tell me in the comment section, what do you think about the new comics? What do you think about this video? Do you agree with my ideas, or would you do something a little bit different if you were to change the Spider-Man comics? Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care, and peace.